counting.
You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible. Who you do business with is more important than where they're located. Bank from the comfort of your own home with Emprise Bank. Coming up, the latest episode of the KC Laboratory Podcast with Ken Swanson, Craig Stout, and Matt Lane. Coming to you on the fastest growing sports media network in Kansas City. You can find all of our channels covering all the local teams wherever you listen to podcasts or on YouTube. Just search KCSN. And now, the latest episode of the KC Laboratory.
It's a live edition of the KC Laboratory presented by Emprise Bank, member FDIC. Maddie Lane, go Bengals!
We are here. We're live. We're at a new time. We wanted to get this bad boy in before the Monday night football game started. I pitched just making this a Bengals Bills watch along that was shot down by the higher ups in the organization. So instead, here we are coming at you guys early, live before the game starts. We might touch on the Bills Bengals before we get out of here at the end as the game starts up, but we got to talk about the big news first, Craig. Brian Branch has officially declared for the NFL draft Alabama safety, quite possibly the best non-pass rusher in this entire draft class. He declared today, so that was good news. I'm glad this happened.
I mean, anybody who's a K-State fan is very well aware of who Brian Branch is. He completely wrecked your game plan this past weekend for Alabama. He's really good. The Chiefs might want a safety in the draft. We'll get there. That's a great spot to take one at the bottom of the first round. That guy might go before then, though. He is that level of good. Yeah, and when Matty says higher ups, he means me. I don't want to sit in front of a camera for 3.5 hours and talk about something that's not the Chiefs. That just does not sound
this
like
works because Craig is great, and he also is like higher up in the air than I am. He's very tall.
So I shot it down too, but I'm shorter than you.
Yeah, I don't know how this works.
I mean, the higher ups did shoot down the idea of going live after Chiefs or after Bengals Bills too.
Oh,
And
no,
by higher ups,
I
Craig.
put that in the dirt. I put that in the dirt real fast. You tried to make me stay up until midnight to talk about a non-Chiefs game. There was zero chance.
Look, I just feel like that's a golden opportunity to react to something that has a great impact on the Chiefs. And there's one more game left for the Kansas City Chiefs in the regular season after the Chiefs defeated the Denver Broncos yesterday afternoon, 27-24, kind of an ugly game. But okay, I want to start with this, and it's positivity. I know, and I know there's plenty of things to look at with this team and stuff. We're getting close to that time where, hey, look, what you are is what you are, and hopefully it's enough to achieve what this team is capable of doing. But we're sitting here in January. The Chiefs have achieved 13 wins for the 5th time in franchise history, twice under Mahomes. This is only the 2nd time Patrick LeVon Mahomes has done this in his career, and he did it in 16 games. It's been such a roller coaster for us as Chiefs fans, navigating the expectations that we have because Patrick Mahomes is the quarterback of this football team, while acknowledging that this is a little bit of a reset year for this team where they leaned extremely heavily on rookies, where they overhauled the wide receiver group, where they've made a lot of structural changes to this team, and here they are, best record through 16, tied for the best record, second best record through 16 games for Mahomes in a regular season. Like, I don't know, guys. There's a lot of things that we want to be focusing on, because we ultimately, the goal is not to quit playing in January, it's to play in February. And we talk so much about this team, and getting this team to February and how it's going to get to February. But at the same time, ugly win yesterday, but that's the 13th one of the year in what is we've all kind of considered a down year, where the AFC West came gunning for them, where the AFC as a whole came gunning for them. And yes, they've struggled against the two teams playing tonight, but at the same time, here we are. we're looking at a 13-3 football team. And like, I want to just take a second off the top to appreciate that, because regardless of all the things that we've talked about over the last 4 months and the patience that we needed to show this football team and the grace we needed to show this, they're 13-3.
Yeah, they very much are 13-3. That is a fact.
Okay,
we can't
Matthew.
argue that.
Okay,
I don't know where we're going with this one. So I'm trying to beat around this. I'm trying to process this just as the listeners are as you're saying it, because I don't know where we're going with this. My mind jumps to, at what point in time of the year do we no longer get to call this some kind of rebuild year, some kind of down year and stuff? Like, at what point in time this season did this change from a rebuild year to just a normal year? Like, yes, they still have places and pieces they need to add and get help at in specifically important positions, but it's not like they're sitting on an insane excess of draft capital or cash to go make these moves. It's not like they have been preparing for this rebuild and all of a sudden are ready to make this big strike next year. Like, yeah, they have a couple extra picks, but it's not like they're loaded. So I don't know if it's fair to still say they're rebuilding or retooling or whatever it is. They're just a good football team that definitely doesn't have the same upper tier talent that they did when they had Tyreek Hill or when Frank Clark and Tyrann Mathieu were both playing really well. They're not that same team anymore that's just heads and tails better than everyone they're going to play, and they're only ever going to lose when they play a down game. Other teams in the NFL can now match their play and beat the Chiefs. The Chiefs' A+ game can be beaten now. 3 years ago, it couldn't be. That's the difference. Like, I don't know if it's rebuilding. They kind of peaked. They hit what they had to, and now they have to figure out how to go forward with different contracts and different players. I just don't know if they're still rebuilding. And they're still a good team. I'm not taking anything away from it. They're a great team. They're fighting to be the first, they're tied for the best record in the NFL. They're getting ready to, they're sitting here in position to have a bye and be the 1 seed in the AFC. It's a good team. I just don't know if we can keep holding on to this rebuilding and this down year thing. Maybe they never planned on it being that. Maybe they just thought it would look differently.
I think from the standpoint of contractually next year, a couple decisions obviously that need to be made, but they can largely fit everything that they want to under the cap next year already. Even with franchise tagging Orlando Brown Jr., they'll still be fine, even without making a whole bunch of moves there. And so I guess from that perspective, looking at it and going, oh, hey, maybe this is, a rebuild, a reset, whatever you want to call it. At the beginning of the year, you gave yourself the ability to do that, and you haven't had that for the past couple of years. And so from that perspective, it looks different. Obviously, trading away Tyreek Hill looks a lot different, but it is one of those that as the season has gone along, yeah, you definitely need to recalibrate your expectations. I believe right there in the chat, Matt Kentner put, we would all have taken 13-3 at the beginning of the year. Absolutely. 1000% we would have. And then in the middle of the year, it's like, oh man, there's a shot at the 1 seed. Like, this is one of the NFL's best teams. And so you look at it from that lens because, expectations shift. Things change throughout the course of the year, and they have continued to change, which is why, we come off of a game like yesterday and we go, man, that was a little sloppy. That's a little sluggish. They get taken to overtime by the Houston Texans. Ugh, that's a little sloppy. That's a little sluggish. This happens every year, though. Like, I mean, I want to go back kind of looking at this. I think we forget about it sometimes. Not just like the three of us, but everybody, Chiefs fans in general, kind of forget about this sometimes. In 2018, in the last 3 games of the season, last 4 games of the season, they went to overtime against the Baltimore Ravens and won. They lost to the Los Angeles Chargers, lost to the Seattle Seahawks, and then beat down the Oakland Raiders in the very final game of the season. Obviously, they go to the AFC Championship game with that squad. That's Patrick Mahomes' best year ever, one of the best offensive years in the history of football. Comes out of that. Obviously, make a change at defense. What happens the next year? Down the stretch there, they let some bad teams hang around a little bit. That was obviously a much better defense. They closed out a little stronger. Then, they allow the Houston Texans to jump out on a playoff game, come back, they reset. They're able to get the victory there. 2020, a similar sort of deal. They went to the wire against a terrible Atlanta Falcons team in week 16. They lose the Los Angeles Chargers in week 18. Some backups there. But the New Orleans Saints, the week before that, the Chiefs were 13-1 in that game and got taken to the wire by the Saints. Miami Dolphins the week before they got taken to the wire. So this happens every single year. And
you're saying it's an Andy thing.
It's an Andy thing. That's exactly what I'm getting to. It's an Andy thing. The man knows how to turn it on the playoffs. That's what it is. And we get to the end of the year here. He starts getting a lot more precious about some of the stuff that he's willing to show. And when it's not executed perfectly, it allows for some close games because he's not getting deep into the playbook, because he's not doing some of the stuff that we are about to see 2 or 3 weeks from now. Like, it's going to be a completely different offense. It's going to look completely different. This stretch right here at the back end of the year, these last few games have historically been tight with Andy Reid at the helm. It doesn't matter who the defensive coordinator has been, how the defense has been playing, who's on the, who the weapons are, any of that. It's historically been tight. And so, yeah, you look at it, it's like, man, just execute a little bit better. And even the sort of vanilla stuff that Andy's doing works, and you win bigger. And that's the complaint right now. But once we get to the playoffs, maybe that margin for error opens up a little bit more, because the difference in game planning, the difference in what he's willing to get into his playbook and show opens that up a little more. And now all of a sudden, we're not having to talk so much about Harrison Butker and Tommy Townsend and James Winchester as much, because maybe those points aren't going to matter in the same way that they would have in week 16.
Tomorrow on the KCS Sutton Substack, I have broken down the snap, hold, and kick process, what I know about it. I was a holder in college. It's like the only way I could get on the field. So I did write an article about it. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button if you're watching. Leave a comment. There's some really great comments flying around. But I have some very, very important news to give you all here today. The Chiefs game has been moved to Saturday at 3:30 Central Time. At 2:30 Central Time in Weston, Missouri at Holladay Distillery, we are having a watch party where you and a +1, if you so choose, can come hang out and hang out with us for a little bit of a watch party. Craig Stout will be there. I have learned. Maddie Lane will not be more incentive to come. So you'll see Craig, you'll see Matt, you'll see Craig, you'll see Tucker, BJ, and myself. We're going to be hanging out there. We're going to be having a good time watching I believe at the event space out there. It is beautiful out there. It's absolutely gorgeous out there. It's a fun place. And that game could just be all the more fun for us as Chiefs fans if the Bengals take care of business today. I would just suggest there's some limited seating there. We're not going to, I don't know. There's a cutoff at some point. But there is a link in the description of this show, whether you're watching live, whether you're listening after the fact, to sign up on our Google form. It's a watch party at Holladay Distillery in Weston, Missouri. It is a lot of fun. If you've been to any of the things that we've done out there, you know it's a really, really fun time out there. So sign up, come hang out with us. You will enjoy it. Okay. I want to talk about the defense a little bit here off the top. Let's go there. I mean, I don't know. There's some stuff on the offensive side of the ball too. The defense, it feels like one of the things I like rewatching and just thinking back out loud again, it just feels like we're still seeing like these, like it kind of ties to the stuff I was talking about earlier. The rookies are still they're all showing up at every level of the defense in some capacity. Even Leo Chanel had some moments this week. Trent McDuffie, I thought, played a very, very good football game. Obviously, Joshua Williams, Jalen Watson had a little bit of a rough go. But for the most part, it was just fun to watch those rookies continue to go out there and play some football. And it's just wild to me to see this young football team, especially on defense, making plays. And I think, there were some bright spots for all of them again.
I'm flabbergasted we're starting on defense right now. I am floored that can't openly chose to start on. This only happens when it's like the Indianapolis Colts game where the offense was completely inept. That's the only time this happens. This has caught me off guard. I have tabs and stuff ready for offense, and we're over here talking defense now. I wasn't ready for this.
Good. Even better.
So yeah, I think the rookies played well. I think the defense as a whole played relatively well in this game. The Broncos averaged 4.7 yards per play. If, they did that for a whole year, well, that would be last in the NFL. So yeah, the Chiefs defense didn't look like they were playing great all the way through this game. There were times where wow, yet again, the Chiefs are giving up, 20-ish points. I know the short field kind of changes stuff, but, giving up 17 points to the Denver Broncos if you take away the short field. And it's like, that doesn't seem great versus a Broncos offense that has been struggling. But then when you go dive into the numbers, okay, 4.7 yards per play, one of the lowest rates in the NFL, 3 for 12 on third downs. Again, you expand that out, one of the worst rates all year if that were to be carried out. So the Chiefs defense did what they should. They smothered the Broncos. It didn't go well for the Broncos, and just the same thing that's kind of been plaguing the Chiefs on both sides of the ball here. Relatively poor situational football led to the Broncos being able to put up points. They weren't having any consistency. They weren't controlling the game. Just they out-executed the Chiefs in certain situations that led to them scoring some more points than the box score or the rest of the stats tell you they should have.
Yes, absolutely. There's a short drive that occurs after a muff punt that is a touchdown there. Obviously, you hope the Chiefs defense steps up and gets a stop. They don't. That's, something that happened. And then there was another drive that you look at that was a lot of penalties and extended multiple sets of downs that the Chiefs would have gotten off the field with penalties. So you take a look at those. Now, that's not excusing either one of those, but you figure out why. All of a sudden, it's like, most of the defense plays well on those scenarios. That one doesn't go their way. Then you've got 2 drives, essentially, that are long-ish touchdown drives and one at the end of the game there. But it's not something that we would be talking about very much if that was the case. If you allowed 14 points to the Denver Broncos or 17 points to the Denver Broncos, oh, well, who cares? Because the game was in control the entire time. So from the defensive point of view, that was good. It's about every third possession right now that the Chiefs defense is allowing some points. Obviously you go back and as the year is, it's not an average, but as of late, they're coming up with about 2 stops for every drive that they allow points in. And that reduces the number of points per drive. That brings you down closer to like the 2 points per drive point, or maybe a little bit lower. That's good. That's well within, that's middle of the pack in the NFL. That's more than enough with what this offense typically does on a given day. So if that continues, if those sorts of, basically every third drive you're allowing points, that's great. You want to tell me that the Chiefs are going to come up against like the Bills or the Bengals and every third drive they're going to allow points? Hell yeah. I feel good about what's going to happen in that scenario. I also feel good about what they're doing to affect the passer. I wrote KCSN Substack, the KCSN Daily, in the postgame article. 54.2% of the dropbacks the Chiefs affected. That was either a sack, a hurry, or a batted pass. That's outrageously good. Over half the time that Russell Wilson dropped back to pass, he was having to deal with something extra. And I know that we get hung up a little too often in the pass rush, getting home and things like that. They obviously did four sacks that you come up with in a week is really good. But it's the effectiveness of it, those batted balls, those hurries, those things that can alter the game that aren't quite as identifiable, that aren't quite as visible maybe to everybody as you're watching the game. That changes things on defense, and that's been the ramp up. We talk about Steve Spagnuolo and his ramp up at the end of the year. That has been the ramp up this year. It hasn't been defense wide and the points wide and everything like that, but it's been the pressure. It's been the way they've been affecting the quarterback over the past 4, 5, 6 weeks that has really ramped up in a big way going into the playoffs.
Seems like the 4-man rush is starting to get a little bit better. Like you guys talk about, there's some moments there. I mean, you saw Trent McDuffie get home on the blitz, forcing that sack late, in that game. That was nice. Like, there's some moments there. You're right. Like, and there's some big plays being made. And pass deflections. I think the Chiefs have 2 of the top in pass deflections at the line of scrimmage with Carlos Dunlap and George Karlaftis. That's not nothing. Like, that's not nothing. Like, making plays on the football and killing those plays. Like, there's a lot of value in those things. So there's elements there to be, excited about. But like, I guess my whole thought with the defense here is we got 1 regular season game left. How in his bag do you think Steve Spagnuolo can get during crunch time? Like, when the playoffs hit, how much more dynamic do we think this thing is going to be? How aggressive is he willing to be with some stuff here, Maddie? Like, I mean, is this what this team is, or what are we expecting from this defense when it comes to crunch time?
We're talking the playoffs, not specifically the Raiders game here, right?
Jared Stidham, I don't care. No, I don't. He played well against the Niners.
I don't know. It might be worth it for Steve Spagnuolo to literally just throw every blitz he has, that he's already put on film again versus the Raiders, because I feel like the blitz rate's probably been dropping a little bit, right? Like,
yes.
And if that's your plan, if that's the way the Chiefs want to play this year, because they need to protect some young corners, because their safeties don't have the range and the quick diagnosis skills that they've had in the past when Tyrann Mathieu was here, that they don't feel comfortable blitzing that often versus good quarterbacks, maybe it'll be worth it to put all your blitzes back on tape again, so it's back in every opponent's mind when they go to play you. Because I think that's been one of the things with the Chiefs this year, is when the 4-man pass rush wasn't getting home as well, or when it isn't, the Chiefs are relegated to having to blitz, but they almost seem a little hesitant to blitz this year because, well, they have guys that are getting beat on the back end. They're not able to hold up on the back end even quickly, or if quarterbacks are just willing to throw the ball up for grabs, Joshua Williams in particular is very open to getting some penalties. I mean, he is, that Craig mentioned, there was a drive extended on 3rd down penalties. It was a 3rd and 4th down penalty by Joshua Williams on that drive. So, I don't know if the Chiefs are going to be as blitz heavy as they've been in the past. They're never going to go away. I mean, you saw it on 4th down. They pulled the zone blitz that, out of nowhere with Reed and McDuffie coming and Mike Dana dropping from, a defensive tackle spot. So they'll still blitz. I don't know what their plan is going into the playoffs. Are they tucking away some of these blitzes so they're not on film, or are they doing it out of necessity? I don't know if it's a conscious choice to hide it, or if it's a conscious choice because they need to have more players in coverage because they don't quite have the same, minds and experience back there right now. So what Steve Spagnuolo gives you in the postseason, a little bit more of a question mark, I think, than years past right now. And both, maybe a good way, but potentially a bad way.
We've seen him ramp it up. Maddie talks about it all the time, about his schematic, his game plan going into playoff games is just ludicrously good. It really is really, really good. Again, the only game that you could really think of that did not go well for the defense was against the Buffalo Bills last year, when they lost their all-pro, the leader of the secondary and the guy that kind of makes everything tick back there. They lost him early.
Me and Maddie were in the secondary for that game.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was not great. That's the only one. The rest of the time, he's come up with really good game plans to try and stop teams, not just initially, but as the game has gone along. It's been consistently evolving, which is kind of why we've been harping on it all year long. It's like they're playing like 3 coverages. Like they're not really mixing it up in the way that he has in the past. So it makes you wonder, are they going to come out? Is it going to be exotic coming out of the playoffs? So it's going to be one of those things that he's just been like, hey, listen, we've got this tucked away. Justin Reed talked about it in the preseason, how this playbook was massive. The things that he needed to take in, absorb, and be able to execute on the coverage side of things. They're not really using a lot of those right now. Or, if there's certain tweaks, certain variants, yeah, sure, we're seeing some of those, but overarching coverage changes we're not seeing in the same way that we have in previous years. So it does make you wonder, are we going to see some of those, or is this just what it's going to be? And if this is what it's going to be, Spagnuolo better have a good game plan for run fits, better have a good game plan for how to bracket guys, how to take care of guys. We're seeing some shifts with Jerry Sneed following guys around the past couple of weeks. We're going to see more of that. I expect that against Devontae Adams this week. We'll talk about that later on. But I do think that we are seeing some tweaks, but not major ones. And so I do wonder if this is it, if this is going to be something that we are going to see a big overhaul, because if he comes out in the playoffs with a big overhaul and it works, well, I mean, we've seen it before, but it would be a massive change for a very young defense.
I guess I'm just curious if what we've seen is good enough. Do you, across board, yes or no? Quick answer. Is what we've seen on defense good enough? Yes or no, Maddie? One answer, one word.
I'm not being pigeonholed into this one answer. The answer is yes, because of the years past, because I trust Steve Spagnuolo to come up with the game plan when it matters versus 95% of the opponents they might face in the playoffs.
Okay. Greg?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. For similar reasons. And because This is the best pass rush he's had in Kansas City. It is.
Yeah.
It easily is. They can go too deep and still affect the passer right now, and he hasn't had that in Kansas City. So, yes, definitely yes.
All right. Anything else on defense before we move on to the offensive side of the ball? Maddie, you look primed.
Yeah, because I had a pretty good transition to go to the offensive side of the ball, but before we did that, Joshua Williams. What are we thinking here? Should he be losing more reps to Watson? What do we think? Or do you think you just got to let him keep trying to sink or swim because he is probably the guy that has a higher ceiling? He's more likely the future starting outside corner than Jalen Watson's going to be. But boy, like it's getting pretty bad now. It's kind of becoming a week by week thing where there's going to be a drive where he's essentially giving the opponent, converted, third and longs, getting them into scoring position with his penalties. What's the leash like? Do you think that leash is getting shorter and shorter?
Yes, definitely shorter and shorter, and it probably should be. I mean, the referees have zeroed in on him. But fair or not, they have zeroed in on him. Now, he's given them plenty of opportunity to, but they have definitely targeted him as a guy that they need to watch. They haven't done that with 35. 35 hadn't been under the same scrutiny. I do believe that Josh Williams has played better. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think that he's probably better, but there's only so much that you can do if you are basically allowing full drives worth of penalties to occur there. I know they want him to play physical. I know they want him to get up there and, jam guys to the line of scrimmage, really affect these guys. Start out with that. If the refs are calling it, if you're seeing them, get warnings from the referees, maybe make the switch then.
This from wonderful producer Jordan Foote. Great poll, buddy. Last 4 weeks, Joshua Williams versus Jalen Watson snap. So Joshua Williams will be first in this count, and Watson will be second. 36-26, 16-20, 20-35, 14-48. That's right. Jalen Watson played 75% of the snaps between basically 3 times the snaps. A little bit more than that actually, but 48 to 14, Jalen Watson out snapping Joshua Williams this last week, I believe.
Boy, it's really telling then that we keep talking about everybody, not just us, but like us or anybody talking about Joshua Williams, and no one's talking about Watson outside of, hey, remember that time against the Texans where they had a run that nobody was home on and he made a tackle. So yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're doing. So that leash has already been very shortened, and I just don't know how many more chances he's going to get. I guess this week against the Raiders is a good one. I did want to say, when we were talking about, is the defense good enough? Do we think the defense is good enough? A lot of that depends on what the offense is doing, because this team funnels through the offense. It's an offensive team. So I think that's kind of the transition to the offensive side, is just a lot of the answer about how good I feel about the defense depends on how good I feel about the offense right now. And I mean, go on, Kit, unload, offensive guy.
Let's do it.
Just big picture, I feel good about the offensive side of the ball still. And I know it's not been the prettiest thing, every single, week, but I think what we've seen is all the elements are there for them to have some success. We've seen them kind of figure out the running game a little bit. We've seen them, I think, Maddie, you brought up a really great point. We've seen them execute, with some vertical stretch. We've seen them challenge in some areas outside of the numbers a little bit more. I think, we've seen them be more efficient in the red zone when they've had their, gadgety guys, with the Kadarius Toney, with the McCole Hardman there. So you've seen all these different pieces and elements to this thing. I do feel pretty good about the offense being able to peak at the right time, especially Mahomes. Mahomes is the guy. He's the trigger man. He's not, I don't want to say bored's not the right word. He didn't throw a pick because he was bored this week against the Broncos. It was a bad mistake, but I think, he continues to calibrate and, kind of adjust as the season goes on. I think you're going to get a very high level version of Patrick Mahomes. And I think we've seen so many elements of what this team has to pull from that they're going to have plenty. And again, Andy Reid and the call sheet is going to be elite when they roll into these playoff games. So I feel pretty good about where this team is. I feel pretty good about this team across the board, if I'm being honest, on the offensive side of the ball.
So, okay, this offensive performance versus the Broncos, what would you give it on a 1 to 10 scale?
1 to 10. You make me do math. Make me do numbers and math again. Give me it was like a 5.5. Like a 5.5.
Craig.
I'll go 6.5 on this one.
Okay, so here we go again. The Chiefs playing the Denver Broncos, who are still one of the better defenses in the NFL. You know, they had a terrible week before against the Rams, but they're still one of the better defenses in the NFL. Chiefs average 6.4 yards per play. If you expand that across the whole entire season, that would be tied for first with the Kansas City Chiefs at 6.4 yards per play. So here, this 5.5 to 6.5 performance on a 1 to 10 scale from the Chiefs would still be good enough to, not the end all be all metric, but a metric that tells you how good you are moving the ball on a play-by-play basis. They would still be the best offense in the NFL. I think that goes to show where our expectations lie with the team, because it didn't look pretty. There were plenty of misses. A lot of stuff was left out there. So I think that funnels into it. But overall, the offense was, highly effective. Yet again, you flip over, a missed field goal, or a blocked field goal, not missed, blocked field goal. You flip over Juju Smith-Schuster or MVS, your wide receiver 2 and 1, I guess, in this game. One of them just making an above average level play on the ball in the end zone before the interception. You're adding another 7 points. This game is probably over at that point in time. So, I get it. I get there's things to nitpick. The Chiefs' third down offense still really bad. Granted, they're still second in the NFL. Somehow, as bad as they've been the last 3 to 4 weeks, they are still second in the NFL in third down conversion rate. But that's bad. But everything else is still just fine for the offense. It's just fine. And they were trying stuff. They were trying to push the ball vertically. They were trying to get into heavier packages. I know everyone's going to be mad they didn't run the ball a lot in that game. One, they were very ineffective when doing so. But two, even more so, I don't think that they were trying to just, nickel and dime their way into an easy win over the Broncos. I don't think that meant anything to Andy Reid and the Chiefs to just beat the Broncos by putting it on the back, on their running backs and their injured left guards, on his ankle. Like that wasn't in the cards. They were trying to perfect parts of the offense for the playoffs. So I don't get too wrapped up in that. I just know they were still pretty darn effective. Like at the end of the day, they were effective, and we all know what they left out there.
Sure. Yeah, it's that part of it. It's the left out there. It's the interception in the end zone. It's the missed blocked field goal. The missed extra point because Tommy Townsend didn't get the hold down. There's a number of things that we can absolutely explain. Some drops, some issues with that, but it's stuff that's been consistent over the last 4. I think that is the reason why it keeps coming up. The Chiefs over the last 4 weeks have only converted 38.6% of their third downs. If that was season long, that would be around 20th. So I know that they're way up there in the ranks, and they've been first for basically all year long. But this 4-game stretch has actually dropped them down the rankings now. They had a healthy lead in that stat, and they just haven't converted well on third down. So we all remember the drops from MVS, Justin Watson, a couple weeks ago. We remember, some mistakes from Patrick Mahomes this week on third down that he would definitely want back. So it is one of those that you watch and you're just like, but we expect perfection. And that's what it is. Kent led with that, when the podcast was starting up here. We expect perfection because Patrick Mahomes is probably going to win the MVP. They are the number 1 offense in the league in just about every measurable metric, including DVOA, despite the fact that they are 28th in variance. That's their week-to-week performance. They are still head and shoulders the best offensive DVOA team in the league. There's a number of things that we could just break down and say, listen, they're awesome at this, they're awesome at this, they're awesome at this. And yeah, by the way, that run game, even though it's not stellar some of the times, and it wasn't stellar against the Broncos, it still is effective in moments. And I expect it to be effective in the playoffs as Andy gets into his bag a little bit more. So I'm not worried about the offense. I fully expect that this is going to turn on. It'll be a light switch that comes on. I don't think that we're going to see like this super trick plays and crazy stuff all of a sudden. It's just going to be executed better, and it's going to be tailored to the opponent. That's not to say that they don't have stuff or didn't have stuff to try and beat the Broncos this week, but they definitely were trying to get stuff under their belts, trying to get some repetitions. It's going to be a lot different when you are tailor-made game planning for an opponent in the playoffs, when you can just kind of open up the full playbook and go.
Hey, do me a favor, if you're listening, if you're watching, hit that like button. hit the subscribe button. Again, helps us grow KC Sports Network, helps more Chiefs fans find it. We got like 18 shows running during Chiefs season. So make sure you're checking that out. And make sure you're hitting the like button, the subscribe button. It definitely does help as we're growing the channel. So one interesting fact, the Chiefs have been under 4 yards per carry 3 of the last 4 weeks. And I think, when we talk, Matt, you talk on a per play perspective, it was just so lopsided. There was no, they weren't having run success. So I think that's where you kind of knock the game a little bit. But at the same time, they had plenty of success offensively. I just think if you're looking at hey, how was this performance from a holistic perspective? That's where you start getting a little bit nitpicky about some of this stuff. But again, like I said at the top, I'm not worried about it. I'm not worried about it. I think we've seen them show and display enough elements. If they don't beat themselves, then nobody will beat them. I think it's still the motto. I think it's, and it's been the case for the vast majority of the Mahomes era, but I think that means more than it ever has with turning the ball over. If they can protect the football during the rest of January, a lot of really good things are going to happen for this football team, and we're going to be talking about them all the way into February. So that's kind of where I stand on that. All right, anything else on offense you guys want to get to? Any big pressing issues? Any tab you have open, Matthew?
I mean, we've briefly talked about the run game. I don't care about I think I mentioned earlier, I don't care about not running the ball against the Denver Broncos. What is flexing the run game against the Denver Broncos and, the week 17 game, really, really accomplish, right? It helps you win that game, but no one's going to all of a sudden start looking at the Chiefs as a run first team. You're just trying to win that specific game. And I'm not saying that doesn't matter, but the Chiefs did. They went and won it, and that didn't end up mattering. So I don't care about not rerunning the ball. I was much happier to see them try to push the ball downfield, try to put the ball vertically on the outside. Now, they didn't connect a ton. Tony caught a couple. They hit Justin Watson on a deep corner route. They were able to find some success on those plays. That's going to matter a lot more for this team going into the playoffs, because now someone's going to see that and they're like, oh, wow, we're a Patrick Mahomes footwork issue away from MVS having a 60-yard touchdown. We're, a ball being slightly overthrown on MVS on a double move, or him just not tracking it super well from there being another long touchdown. And there's the Sky Moore drop, underthrown pass. There's enough stuff out there that I think that matters a lot more to opposing defenses, seeing the Chiefs being able to get guys open vertically. Having wide open players downfield and just missing the throw is going to mean a lot more. That's going to scare defenses a lot more than if Isaiah Pacheco had 9 more carries for 31 more yards in this game. That wouldn't have, I don't think, mattered at all. So I was kind of happy the way they went. They might come out this week against the Raiders and just try to pound the rock and just try to get out with the game. I don't know what they'll do. Andy's going to pick something that they want to work on for the playoffs, and it's going to be there. And I wouldn't be shocked if it's the vertical passing game again, as discombobulated it looked last week. It might happen again, but whatever it is, they're going to pick something that's going to matter for the playoffs. I think that's what this last the game plan was based around, and it had mixed results, but I don't get bent up about the not running part of it.
Yeah, defensive coordinators are terrified of giving up explosive plays. That is the number one thing. They hate it. It keeps them up at night. It doesn't matter who it is. It's not like there's defensive coordinators that are sitting there going, well, they don't have Tyreek, so we can play single high all game. No, If they're seeing guys get open, if they're seeing those routes there, and even if it's not connecting, it's still going to be one of those that's oh, hell, okay. It's third and this. We got it this. There's that look again. We saw him get vertical. It's going to change the way you think. You hit on one, you hit on two, which they did this past week. Hit on a couple of those. Now you've got Lou Anarumo sitting there going, damn it. Now they're trying that stuff again. It's not just taking what's in front of them. It's not just forcing them to play patient and trying to take that stuff away and rally to the ball. We got to make sure we stay over the top of this stuff. I know that MVS isn't the most reliable hands person in the world there, but man, that's all it takes. That's all it takes to knock a defense into, split safety coverages, protecting their corners, making sure that they keep everything over the top is one. That's all it takes is one, or the threat of one. And the Chiefs this week definitely put that threat on tape.
All right, stickers, slaps, and spirits time. I know we're all getting ready for a big Monday night football game, so we're gonna do sticker, slaps, and spirits, and then we'll do one other quick thing before we get out of here. My helmet sticker goes to Justin Reed. I thought he had potentially his best game as a Chief this week, getting used a little bit more close to the line of scrimmage at times, but also I have to give him a helmet sticker for this tweet he just put out about 30 minutes ago. Really hoping Higbee can catch a few touchdowns today.
Oh man.
It's perfect.
But
slapping a good job, Matthew. What you got?
God, I don't ever remember I'm next. Butt slap to Sky Moore. We saw a slight, not even an uptick in snap count. It was just really the usage. I think he still played about 15 snaps, which is barely up from his average. Justin Watson's dipped down. It didn't seem like a lot went to Sky Moore, but when he was out there, you saw the Chiefs fling the ball out to him a little bit on these little like wide receiver screens. You saw them get him going on some jet motions that they were trying to turn into some wheel routes. They did it a couple times. Denver was on top of it. You saw him get the seam route. It looked like he was actually involved in the offense, not just being a guy thrown out there to hold a position on the backside of a formation. Again, everything Andy Reid was doing these last 2 weeks is going to be for a purpose. I think there's a reason that Sky Moore played roughly the same amount of snaps, but all of a sudden was involved in real parts of the Chiefs offense going forward. And he did well when he had the chances too. Like, I don't want to skip over that. He did a really good job on the few chances that he did got besides the, dropped low pass on the seam route.
Well, you guys once again left Jerick McKinnon and Chris Jones both on the table there, but I toasted them last night. So shout out to them. But my whole ass bottle of vodka is going to Blake Bell for being the 11th touchdown. Cake Bell being the 11th touchdown pass, a different person that Patrick Mahomes has thrown a touchdown pass to this season. Obviously getting immediately integrated back into the Chiefs with their heavy personnel, showing a little more of that. His ability to come in and have that one catch for 17 yards is so important to this offense. It really is. It gives them that extra little dynamic. We've seen Noah Gray grow into stuff. Having Blake Bell being a guy that they can trust to go in there, block on 95% of the plays that he's going to be on, but still be a dynamic enough weapon receiving to go out and make a play. So whole ass bottle of vodka to Blake Bell there.
That's wonderful. Chris Jones getting some love from the chat, who we give a game ball out. Jerick McKinnon getting some love. The offensive line, they were solid in pass protection, getting some love there too. Before we get out of here, thanks everybody again hitting the like button, hit the subscribe button, please. Because this is gonna post, tonight, and a lot of people will be listening on their drive to work tomorrow. I want to pretend for 3 minutes that the Cincinnati Bengals beat the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football, so that if you're driving home or if you're driving to work or whatever tomorrow, this is relevant. And if not, you can shut it off early. That's fine. But I just want to pretend for 3 minutes like the Cincinnati Bengals have beaten the Buffalo Bills. How excited are you to get a 1 seed, Matthew?
I thought we were going to predict this game or talk about who we wanted to win. I wasn't ready for this because I had the ultimate heel turn ready.
What was
Zero chance I root for the Cincinnati Bengals and that fraudulent team that was the luckiest team to ever play in a Super Bowl. No chance in hell do I root for the Cincinnati Bengals and all of their fake swagger and fake coolness to ever win a football game against a genuinely cool and fun football team like the Buffalo Bills. The Patriots can beat the Bills next week. The Cincinnati Bengals can lose out, then lose their first game in the playoffs for all I care. That fake team has people that follow them tweeting from the stadium that fans from both sides supposedly are chanting F the Chiefs in a game that doesn't even involve the Chiefs. And you guys want me to root for that garbage team? Zero chance. Get the Bengals all the way out of here and their fraudulent selves. No, I love it. Chance.
I love it. Absolutely love it. Just love it. Hey, let's go get the 1 seed. Like, I mean, seriously, it doesn't matter who it is. Like, go get the 1 seed.
Matt, you can say everything. Nice. You can say everything you just wanted right now, and the Bengals can still catch these hands if they wind up making it to Arrowhead.
So can the Bills.
I hope they lose 79-0.
if you're still listening to this, the Chiefs have achieved the opportunity to earn the 1 seed with the win over the Las Vegas Raiders. You can come hang out at the Holladay Distillery. There is a link to sign up for that. There is limited capacity, so make sure you sign up. You can bring a +1 to it. Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun hanging out, watching Chiefs Raiders with the Chiefs having a chance to earn the 1 seed next week. That is going to do it for the KC Laboratory. Thank you so much. Go Bengals, Holladay!
Let's ride.